Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're doing something that, well, on the surface it sounds a little bit morbid.
Oh.
We're performing a post-mortem.
Right. Okay, that does sound a bit grim.
Yeah.
Are we talking like a failed startup, a market crash?
Not exactly. We're performing a post-mortem on a document that, usually gets buried in academic archives and just forgotten.
Okay.
We're looking at the ACCA examiner's report for the Business and Technology exam. This one covers the full cycle from September 2024 through August 2025.
I see where you're going with this. And just to be clear for everyone listening, this isn't about, just looking at test scores or something.
No, not at all.
These reports are incredible resources. They're basically a catalog of human error. They don't just tell you the right answers. They tell you exactly where thousands of smart, prepared people went wrong.
And that's really what we want to do in this deep dive. We have this stack of data showing where aspiring professionals, people who studied for months, still trip up.
On the fundamentals.
On the fundamentals of how businesses actually work. And we want to take those specific failures and, well, turn them into a shortcut for you.
It's a bit of a pre-mortem for everyone else then. If you can see the trap before you step in it, you're already ahead of the game.
So let's look at the source material broadly first.
Yeah.
There's a really interesting narrative thread right from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
The examiner points out this specific tension. It's a 2-hour exam, mostly objective questions, and it covers a huge range of topics. And, generally the pass rates are high.
Which you'd think means candidates are comfortable with the material.
Usually, yeah. But the report highlights a split. Candidates tend to absolutely crush Part C of the syllabus, the hard skills,
The numbers
stuff,
Right.
financial accounting, specific calculations, they can balance the books, but then they hit a wall.
Right. And that's where they struggle. Economics and management theory. And the examiner's note on this is, I think, the key to the whole document.
What does it say?
They say very explicitly that candidates struggle here because they try to rely on common sense.
Or their own limited workplace experience.
Exactly. Instead of the actual frameworks they're meant to have studied.
That's the hook for me. We all think we understand business just because we have a job. We think we get management because we have a boss.
Of course.
But the report is effectively saying your intuition is often wrong.
It is. Common sense is a terrible guide for complex organizational structures. When you rely on what feels right, you miss the counterintuitive stuff.
Like what?
Like the dynamics of power and governance. You assume everyone thinks like you, or that, the rules you see in your small office apply everywhere.
So let's test our own intuition. I want to start with a specific case from the report. It's example 1 in the source material, and it involves a character named Stefan.
Stefan and his supply chain. This is a great example of where bigger doesn't always mean more important.
Okay, so here's the scenario. Stefan is a customer. He buys 20% of a company called Gadco's Total Output.
Right, 20%.
Now, immediately, my brain goes, 20% is massive. If I lose a customer buying 1/5 of my product, I'm in panic mode.
Any business owner would be. Losing 1/5 of your revenue overnight is a catastrophe.
But the scenario adds a crucial detail. Stefan has many other suppliers, and he likes to keep them competitive with each other.
Okay.
So the question asks us to categorize Stefan using a standard business tool called Mendelow's grid.
Which is the standard tool for prioritizing your stakeholders. You map them based on 2 things. Power, so how much leverage they have, and interest, how much they care about your day-to-day.
Right. So let's walk through the trap here. The report says many candidates get this wrong. To me, Stefan looks like a high-power, high-interest stakeholder.
Mm-hmm.
He buys a lot, so he has power. And because he buys so much, surely he's interested in the company's success, right?
And that is exactly where the common sense logic fails. The correct answer, according to the examiner, is high power, but low interest.
Okay, I'm struggling with the low interest part.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm buying 20% of your factory's output, surely I care if your factory burns down.
Well, you care about getting your product, sure. But interest in Mendelow's context isn't just, do I like the product? It's more like, how actively do I need to influence and monitor this company?
Oh, okay.
And you've got to look at that second part of the scenario. Stefan has many other suppliers. He's playing the field.
So he's not dependent on Gadco.
Exactly. If Gadco fails, Stefan just calls up supplier B or supplier C. He's insulated. He doesn't need to sit on their board. He doesn't need their daily production reports. So his level of active engagement, his interest is low because he has alternative.
But the high power part, that remains.
Yes, and that's crucial. Why is he high power? Because he has the leverage. He can walk away. That ability to switch is his power.
So if I'm running Gadco and I misread this,
Yeah.
I assume he's high interest just because of the volume. What's the risk?
You might waste immense resources trying to engage him. You invite him to strategy days, you send him detailed reports he never reads. You might just annoy him.
Right.
But the bigger risk is failing to respect his power. You might think, oh, he buys so much from us, we're partners. No, you're a commodity to him. If you slip up, he leaves, and you lose 20% of your revenue overnight.
It's a strategic planning disaster waiting to happen. You're treating a mercenary like a partner.
And that's the danger of intuition. Intuition says big customer equals best friend. Theory says big customer with alternatives equals dangerous overlords.
Okay, so let's move from external power dynamics to the internal ones. Example 2 in the report is, well, it's like a mini corporate soap opera. We've got 2 directors at a company, Freddie Javid and Eleni.
The classic clash of governance philosophies, yes.
The descriptions are, they're pretty stark. Javid is described, and this is almost brutal, as being motivated primarily by self-interest.
Right.
He only cares about the company's performance if, it boosts his own status or his bonus.
Which is, I'm afraid, a very common archetype in the corporate world.
And then we have Eleni. She believes the company is a separate legal person, and she feels a duty of care not just to the owners, but to the community, the employees, everyone.
And the test asks candidates to match these personalities to specific corporate governance theories.
Let's start with Javid, the me first guy. The report links him to something called agency theory.
Right. Agency theory is, well, it's the bedrock of a lot of modern corporate structure. It looks at the relationship between the principal, that's the shareholders who own the firm, and the agent, the director they hired to run it.
And what's the core assumption of this theory?
It's basically cynicism. Agency theory assumes that the agent is naturally self-interested. So, given the chance, the agent will prioritize their own wealth or their own leisure or empire building over the shareholder's profit.
So the theory just expects Jav to be selfish.
It predicts it. That's why under agency theory, you see so much emphasis on contracts, stock options, audits, all that. You're trying to align the greedy agent's interests with the owner's interests.
You're assuming Javid will loot the place unless you incentivize him not to.
Pretty much, which explains a lot of executive compensation packages, doesn't it? It's essentially a bribe to do the right thing.
Now, what about Eleni? She seems to have a broader moral compass.
Eleni represents stakeholder theory. This challenges the whole idea that a company is just a profit machine for shareholders.
Okay.
It argues the company has a social license to operate. It impacts the environment. It employs locals. It uses infrastructure. Therefore, the director has a duty to balance all these competing interests, the stakeholders.
Now, this report mentions a red herring here that tripped a lot of people up. Stewardship theory.
Yes, this is where candidates get confused because they see Eleni acting responsibly and they immediately think, steward.
To me, Eleni sounds like a steward. She cares. Why doesn't she fit that particular box?
It's a subtle but really vital distinction. Stewardship theory is kind of the optimistic cousin of agency theory.
How so?
It assumes directors are naturally trustworthy, that they're good shepherds who want the company to succeed for its own sake. They aren't in it for the money, they're in it for the mission.
That sounds lovely.
It is, but the report explicitly says neither of them fits this. Javid is obviously too selfish. But Eleni, her focus is too broad. Stewardship is usually about the internal custody of the assets for the owners. Eleni is looking outward at the community, at the environment. That external focus is what puts her firmly in stakeholder theory.
This really highlights that governance isn't just a set of rules. It's a mindset. Depending on which theory you subscribe to, or which one your boss subscribes to, you're going to act completely differently.
Absolutely. If you hire a Javid but you expect him to act like an Eleni, you're going to be disappointed. If you build a compensation system for a steward but you hire an agent, you're going to get robbed. The report is reminding us that we need to diagnose the motivation before we can apply the right structure.
I want to pivot now to something that feels very personal to me, and I suspect to a lot of our listeners. Example 5. The tragedy of Shireen.
Ah, yes. This one hits close to home for anyone who's ever felt burned out.
So Shireen is a partly qualified accountant in a public service organization. The scenario describes her as pleasant. Her boss finds her easy to work with. But because she's so nice, the boss just keeps dumping work on her because her colleagues are, quote, difficult.
The path of least resistance. The manager is failing to manage the difficult people, so they just overload the competent, Nice one.
Exactly. So now Shireen is drowning. She's completely overwhelmed. Complaints are coming in because she's missing deadlines. And her coping mechanism, she just processes work in the order it arrives. First in, first out.
And this is where the common sense trap snaps shut again. The question asks for the barriers to effective time management.
I can guess what most people probably answered. When you see an overwhelmed employee, the standard advice is delegate, delegate, delegate.
Right. But the examiner points out a critical detail in the text. Shireen has no one to delegate to. She's the one doing the work. So inability to delegate is the wrong answer. It's a structural impossibility, not a personal failure.
So if it's not delegation, what is the actual diagnosis? The report lists 2 key barriers.
The first one is psychological. Lack of assertiveness.
Because she can't say no.
Precisely. She accepts work that's meant for difficult colleagues because she wants to be pleasant. That is a time management failure. We often think time management is about calendars and apps.
Yeah.
But the report is saying you cannot manage your time if you cannot control your intake.
If your door is always open, your calendar is never really yours.
Exactly. And the second barrier, lack of work prioritization.
Right. She's just doing things in the order they arrive.
Which feels fair, right? It feels democratic. I'll get to everyone in turn. But in a business context, it's a disaster. It's a surrender.
That's a harsh way to put it.
But it's true. Effective time management requires judging urgency versus importance. Shireen is just reacting. She's treating her desk like a deli counter. Take a ticket, get served.
Right.
But some of those tasks are critical fires, and some are just noise. The report notes she is motivated. She wants to do a good job.
Yeah.
But motivation without assertiveness and prioritization just leads to faster burnout.
That is such a powerful distinction. You can be the hardest worker in the room, the most motivated, but if you lack assertiveness, you are technically failing at time management.
It completely redefines the skill. It's not about working faster. It's about boundaries.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. From the individual to the structural. The report has a section on roles specifically, example 4, which is about operational supervisors.
This is another area where, job titles in the real world can really confuse the official exam definition.
So the question asks, do operational supervisors coordinate resources?
Meaning, do they control the budget? Do they buy the machinery? Do they decide how many people are on the payroll?
My gut says yes. If I'm a supervisor, I'm in charge of the resources on my floor. I tell people what to do with the machines.
But you're in charge of the usage of those resources. You don't coordinate the acquisition or allocation of them, so the answer is no.
Okay, so who does that then?
That's the job of departmental or project managers. They hold the purse strings. They're the ones who decide Department A gets 5 people, Department B gets 3.
So what is the supervisor's job, technically?
The report really emphasizes motivating employees. Their role is to take the hand they are dealt, the staff and tools provided by the managers, and just get the best possible efficiency out of that team.
That's a really helpful line in the sand. Managers allocate, supervisors execute and motivate.
It prevents a lot of confusion. If a supervisor thinks they can just hire more people to solve a problem, they don't understand their role. They have to solve the problem with the people they already have.
We're sort of moving through the hierarchy here. We've done directors, supervisors, employees. Now let's talk about the rules they all have to play by. Example 3 touches on IFRS International Financial Reporting Standards.
The supposed global language of accounting.
Right. We tend to assume that international means universal. The question poses 2 true-false statements. First, are IFRS used as national requirements in some countries? And second, are they required for stock exchange listings in some countries?
And the answer to both is true.
That seems straightforward. So why is this in the report as a problem area?
Because candidates often assume it's all or nothing. They assume global standards means everywhere. But the report notes a fascinating inconsistency in the real world. These standards are models. They aren't global law.
Can you give an example of that difference?
The report compares Australia and Pakistan. In Australia, IFRS is mandatory for, essentially all business entities. If you run a business, you use the standards.
Okay.
But in Pakistan, they're only mandatory for financial institutions and listed companies.
So a private manufacturing company in Pakistan might be using a totally different rule book.
Exactly. So you can't just assume IFRS applies everywhere to everyone. It's a patchwork. The concept is global, but the application is very much local.
The details matter.
In law and accounting, details are everything.
Speaking of law, let's get to maybe the most dramatic part of the report, crime and punishment. This is example 6.
This is such a crucial distinction for anyone entering a profession, whether it's accounting or law or medicine.
The scenario is simple. A member of a professional body breaches the code of conduct. Maybe they cooked the books, maybe they lied. The question is, what can the professional body do to them?
And the options are usually things like reprimand, fine, expel, or prosecute.
And where do people get tripped up?
On that word prosecute.
It makes sense why. If I steal money from a client, I expect to be prosecuted.
And you should expect that, but not by the ACCA or the Bar Association.
Why not? They're the ones investigating me.
Because they're a professional body, not the state. They have no legal jurisdiction to put you in jail. They can reprimand you. They can fine you if their charter allows it. And they can definitely expel you, take away your license to practice. That's their ultimate weapon.
But they cannot drag you into a criminal court.
No. Prosecution is the monopoly of the state. That's the police, the district attorney, the public prosecutor.
It seems obvious when you say it like that, but I can see the confusion. In our heads, breaking the rules and breaking the law sit in the same bucket.
And often the actions overlap. If you embezzle, you've broken the code of ethics and the law, but you will face two separate tribunals. The professional body will kick you out. The state will put you in prison. There are parallel tracks.
One ends your career, the other ends your freedom.
Exactly. And knowing which body holds which stick is fundamental to professional ethics. You need to know who you're answering to.
We have covered a lot of ground here. We started with Stefan and the power dynamics of supply chains. We psychoanalyzed Javed and Eleni.
We did.
We diagnosed poor Shireen's inability to say no. We clarified who controls the budget, and we drew the line between getting fired and getting arrested.
It's quite a journey for a single exam paper.
It really is.
Yeah.
And I think the overarching lesson here, the meta lesson, it goes right back to what we started with. Why do people fail these questions?
Because they think business is just doing stuff. They think if they're smart and hardworking, they'll get the right answer. But as we saw with Shireen, hardworking can be the wrong answer if the framework calls for assertive.
And as we saw with Stefan, big customer doesn't always mean needs your constant attention.
Precisely. The examiner's report is basically a giant billboard saying, stop guessing, learn the framework. Professionalism isn't just experience. It's understanding the underlying mechanics of why things work the way they do. It's about moving from intuition to analysis.
That is a great place to leave it. But before we go, I do want to leave our listener with a thought to chew on.
Go for it.
We all like to think we're the Eleni in the story, ethical, broad-minded. But look at your calendar this week. Look at your decisions. Are you actually acting like a Javed? Are you optimizing for your own targets? Because that's how your agency, your company incentivizes you.
And if you are feeling overwhelmed like Shireen, ask yourself the hard question. Is it really the workload? Or are you maybe solving the wrong problem because you're afraid to be assertive?
The report suggests that without the theory, we might just be solving the wrong problems forever. Thanks for diving in with us.
A pleasure.
See you next time.